So this is an exciting moment for University of Regina Press and Clearing the Plains, our lead title by James Daschuk. As we speak, Jim is in studio with The Current, CBC Radio's flagship program, which is a very big deal for us and for the book. One, we're a new press, nobody knows us. And to get an author on The Current is a big deal. It has very high standards. And two, it's a big deal for Jim because he's never done national media before. What happened yesterday was that there was a news story that came out in which we discovered that in the 40s and 50s, the Canadian government experimented on Aboriginal children, kept them malnourished, did experiments on them, and they were hungry. And they were hungry all the time. And so when I heard that story, I realized that we actually had something to contribute to that story because, of course, there was a precedent. It's important that Jim's on the Current because, one, it expands the story, it shows the context, and two, from a publisher's point of view, we need to sell books. So we do all kinds of things to do that, but to get in the media is really important. You know, we put out books for book reviews, but the most important thing you can do, of course, is to plug into news that's happening right now. And as horrific as the story of the children being starved by the government is, it's an opportunity for us to tell the story of our book as well, which I think Canadians really need to know about. So we're going to tune in now. This is exciting.
New revelations that some Aboriginal people were kept intentionally malnourished as a science experiment have shocked many Canadians, but as you're about to hear, people who attended the schools are not surprised. Well, according to James Daschuk, the federal government has a long history of using food to pressure First Nations. James Daschuk is a historian with the Centre for Kinesiology, Health and Sport at the University of Regina, and he's also the author of Clearing the Plains, Disease, Politics of Starvation, and the Loss of Aboriginal Life. And James Daschuk is with us in Regina this morning. Mr. Daschuk, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
First of all, what did you think when you heard the federal government was conducting these experiments that we've just been talking about, the experiments on malnourishment in the 1940s?
I guess along with a lot of other people, I was shocked, but in some senses, I'm not totally surprised. Nothing really surprises me anymore. After doing the research on my book and doing other forms of research with my colleagues, like I said, nothing really surprises me anymore. Treaty 6 was negotiated nation to nation. Plains Cree at Fort Carlton were a very strong position. It was only a few months after the Battle of the Little Bighorn. So I think Canadian officials were very serious, as were the Plains Cree, and everyone was well informed of the situation on the ground. 2 years later, when the buffalo disappeared, the Indigenous nations basically lost their bargaining power, lost their freedom, and were dependent on the commitment to help out with food. And like I said, a humanitarian crisis was turned into a political opportunity that was taken advantage of under the supervision of John A. Macdonald. In 1882, there was an announcement in Parliament that the territory of Assiniboia, south of the proposed Canadian Pacific Railway, so that's southwestern Saskatchewan, would have all Indigenous people removed from that territory. It was considered to be prime agricultural land. They wanted to be opened up for settlement and for the railway to be built without any hindrance. So people were moved either by force or having food withheld from them. And there are numerous instances of food being withheld until the people started to move toward proposed reserves near Battleford, several hundred kilometers out of the way.
Where's the evidence of what you're talking about the withholding of food?
Indian Affairs reports, physicians' accounts from the Northwest Mounted Police. John A. Macdonald even boasted in Parliament that he was withholding food till the people were on the verge of starvation, and this is, in Hansard, in order to save on the expenditure that he was spending on the food crisis. The health of Indigenous people in my region in Saskatchewan was undermined more than 120 years ago, and that gap, the gap in health outcomes, really hasn't been reduced in that time. We continue to live with the legacy of this forced starvation policy.
James Daschuk, thanks very much for talking to us this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike.
This is the summer edition of The Current.
6 a.m. And I'm all wound up to some extent. If it opens up the dialogue, if it opens up that can of worms and challenges people's perception, so be it. I've succeeded.
So I just got off the phone with Jim, and he was pleased with the interview, as was I. I said to him, so what are you doing for the rest of the day? And he goes, oh, I'm working on a project, obviously. And I said, oh, no, you're not. You're going to write an op-ed for the Globe and Mail. And he said, am I? And he is going to write an op-ed to the Globe and Mail. It's a bit of a crapshoot. They get about 30 submissions a day, but it's very timely. And if he writes a piece that I know he can write, then my guess is that we're going to have a good chance in running it. So fingers crossed on that one. He sat down, he wrote it, he sent it in hours later. Donna and myself gave it an edit, sent it back. He sent it back to us. I sent it off to the Globe, and they got back right away, and they wanted to publish it. So the op-ed appeared on the editorial and comment page of the Globe and Mail when Canada used hunger to clear the West. So from this resulted a flurry of media activity. CTV called immediately, News Talk Radio called, then all kinds of other media outlets. Then bulk orders started to come in for the book from across the country. Bookstores started to contact us. And this is all very exciting because, in fact, the book hit the bestseller list in Saskatchewan last week. And of course, we would love to see that go national. So very important for Jim, very important for the story, and very important for University of Regina Press.